What up, gamers? We are back with some more modern action. This time, Dimir Oculus versus Scapeshift. And this is a interesting one and a good one if you are interested in learning a deck. Because we get so used to 60-card formats and modern and competitive sides of things and being like, you need to, put in the reps and have good knowledge of your deck, especially if you're going to be doing content and things like that. And, but this is a good one because we have one player, the Dimir Oculus player, who has been playing Magic forever and comes and goes, but playing a lot more One Piece. That's why we have not seen them on camera in a while. But they're very familiar with the format and the decks and the games and all that stuff. At least their deck. They understand how their deck functions. On the other side, we have a player that is borrowing somebody else's deck and wanted to learn Scapeshift for the first time. So, many players are familiar with the Amulet Titan running Scapeshift, but this is like a tried and true. My goal is to cast Scapeshift and win. I'm going to cast Scapeshift with 7 or so lands, get some Valakuts, and trigger and just machine gun you down. Pew, 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 pew. 3 damage every single time a land's going to enter because I've got something like a Dryad of Elysium Grove. So all of my lands are mountains, and it just ends the game. So it's going to be interesting to see as our player sort of starts to navigate and learn the deck. We do have this deck featured on the camera and on the channel coming up in the next coming weeks and months of players who, the player who owns the deck, and they're working through it and learning the deck here, but we'll have a player that kind of knows the deck a little bit better. So I really wanted to feature this video because we get to see that sort of growing learning elements that are not always shown when it comes to content and stuff like that, because many people know now of starting out and being like, okay, cool, I understand the game, and they forget those moments of learning a new deck and learning the ins and outs. I mean, I see it all the time because I do so much of this, content every single week of okay, cool, let's learn a different deck and learn, especially when it's a new strategy pops up or different decks, there is that learning curve, especially when I have my games on camera. You'll see me make quite a few mistakes of me kind of being like, oh, okay, I thought this worked this way, or I was much more hesitant as I'm learning how to fight and navigate this matchup. And it does become that element of learning how to navigate matchups, but all of that kind of is doubled when you are picking up a deck for the first time and trying to navigate and learn how to go about things. We see at this point, we're trying to set up and get some mana. We're using our Green Sun Zenith kind of to get a land over a creature later on, like the Dryad of Elysium Grove. That's going to get met with a Fatal Push. So I think it's especially because we had land already in our hand, I think the goal was to try to rush to Scapeshift there, but I feel like maybe saving it, because we're facing a frog, but up to that point we had not been worried too much about anything else until here comes this Oculus. I spoke too soon. All of this cantripping that we've been doing, the thought scouring, the considers, the fetching, the surveilling, all of it has led to this moment of being able to try to cast this Oculus, which is actually going to be met with a reprieve, which is awesome to see. Returning that to hand and drawing a card. 7 cards left in hand for the Oculus player here. Another Green Sun Zenith. There's the Dryad of Elysium Grove, though, we were talking about, giving us additional land drops, which we sadly do not have. We've got a mountain here, it looks like. Oh, actually, we do have a Bajuka Bog. So that would have been nice to show up a little bit ago, but that's okay now. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing both of these decks a little bit more on camera, or many of the other decks that we've got, make sure you guys are subscribing. We do have gameplay every Monday and Thursday for you to be able to enjoy. We've got quite a few fun games coming up, some hardened scales, some Tron lists, some control lists, some Esper lists, all kinds of fun stuff, some more affinity lists coming up. So, and of course, at this point, I want to say maybe we've had our vlog content out. I can't remember where we are in the cycle, but we had, of course, went to Commander Sealed. It's a ton of fun, and we have all that vlog footage for you guys to be able to check out. And we've got, of course, coming up our big event at Atlanta, MagicCon Atlanta. We are a featured content creator at the event, and we are hosting a Modern event to come out and learn and play Modern. We're going to be bringing our quivers so you can be able to borrow a deck if you don't have one, or play your deck. If you're going to say, hey, I want to come and hang out and play a game, that's one way to be able to do it. So, oh, there's the Unearthed. We were waiting for it. So this is the power. Like, the Oculus versions are so good at, like, once they get set up and on the battlefield, they can just sort of take over a game. I'm still on the Dimir Murktide without Oculus. Like, I have graveyard decks, right? I've got a Living End deck built. You know, I've got decks that, like, care about the graveyard, but the Oculus side and doing, like, those types of decks, they're less on my radar of graveyard based decks, but I know they're really strong and really fun, and a lot of people like them. So, you know, I think if I do end up building like an Oculus style deck, it'll probably end up being like the Simic Birthing Ritual deck at this point, because I like the Birthing Ritual decks. We're gonna attempt to do a Scapeshift here. The other downside is you're playing a deck that cares about trying to resolve Scapeshift. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's not necessarily enough to kill our opponent, but very close to it. Or actually it would be, because we could get multiple because we get all the lands. But we have Force of Negation trying to get used. And we're going to attempt to reprieve it. So we get Wizard Battle action here. We've got 3 spells in the stack. 4th spell going to come up with our counter spell here. So very tough interaction there. Sadly, Scapeshift does not resolve, but that's the challenge of fighting against a Dimir Oculus list. And I'm wondering if probably not. I was like, I wonder if there's room to run blue for that like uncounterable land. But probably not if you're just going for this like traditional, I'm just playing Scapeshift and it is basically a Naya version, because you have to run, you know, a certain number of mountains in order to try to win without having Dryad of Elysium Grove. You can still just be like, I don't care, Dryad of Elysium Grove's there. I love the flagstones being added in. I think that's such a great addition to the list. I have my smallpox list that I have actually is black-white just to run that, so when I'm hitting you with a smallpox, you're losing a land, and I'm kind of net zero, not having to really worry about it. Yeah, I'll sacrifice it, but it turns into a godless shrine, you know, so like I like that. So we're going to attempt to block here, hoping it's not going to be a big scary creature. That's going to force kind of the discarding, pumping of the frog, and big punchies coming across, dropping the Scapeshift player to 6 life. Okay, 3 mana still left, drawing cards, lots of resources. That's the thing, like the Oculus list, like the Dimir list is more tempo-y based with frogs and counterspells and cantrippy stuff, but then once it's got the Oculus, you get to close out the game faster than the traditional Dimir Murktide players would. So that's kind of the fun, exciting part of running the Oculus style. All right, we have a Valakut here. We've got a Green Sun Zenith. What's our last card? We play Valakut for sure. Oh, we have Wish. I don't know. Play Valakut, trigger, shoot our opponents for 3. All right, Wish. I think that's another cool thing too, is you turn your sideboard for the Scapeshift into a little bit more toolboxy, and you guys know that I love me a toolbox deck, so this kind of gives us access. Most people are familiar with seeing Wish in a storm based deck, where you're going to wish for your win con or something like that. In this case, we do have access to a Scapeshift in the sideboard. We've got also just kind of a little bit of more effects to help us out here. Endurances. We got, looks like 2 endurances on the board. Is that Leyline Bindings? Wrath of Skies. We don't have any energy, sadly, to be able to Wrath. Path to Exile. So we're in the delay mode. Now you might be looking, there's no white sources. Well, Dryad of Elysium Groves turns our lands into all lands, so we do have a white source. So we're going to attempt to path, get rid of that Oculus. Oh, hard cast the Force of Negation. I was like, we already know we've gotten through 2 reprieves. The likelihood they have another one's not there. But it's going to say, all right, let's go to game 2. All right, so we get an idea of what the Scapeshift deck is trying to do. I think there was not much we could have done in that situation. Like, we kept trying, and we got into a wizard battle against a blue deck, which is never a spot that you want to be, where you're both swinging, like, flinging spells at each other, except the counter spells for the Dimir player are just, you know, a little bit, you know, better and also more plentiful there for sure. So we'll see how sideboarding options have gone, how game 2 goes for these 2 players here. It's like another frog, an unearthed setup for Oculus player. Good way to start things off. I mean, we saw how much the frog kind of took over the game there. All right, fetching, shocking. What do we got for turn 1? Try to think of like turn 1 options. Temple Garden, I guess Green Sun Zenith again we could go for here. What else could we be running as a turn 1? Oh, Grazer, that'll do it. Boreal Grazer is a great card for this list. And again, if you're familiar with like the Scapeshifty stuff, or at least Prime Time, you know a Boreal Grazer lets you cheat a land into play. And it's got a little bit of reach to help us kind of do some blocking there. So very nice. Yeah, the option of do we Scapeshift here? Yeah, let's Scapeshift up. Green Sun, or not Scape, sorry. Green Sun for 1. Get our Dryad. Oh, there's another Fatal Push ready for that. I mean, that's the thing. It's like Bolt the Bird sort of mentality goes along with this Dryad Arbor as well. Like, it's a land and a creature. They can't tap it. They can't do much with it right now. So it is that, hey, we got to make sure we kind of put a stop to that. And there we go. Fatal Push going to get used. Fetch, shock. Make sure that gets out of here. Green Sun Zenith will get shuffled back in there. But it looks like our opponent, they're left with 2 cards. Scapeshift player has 2 cards left. One of which is a Scapeshift. So they really were just like going all in on let's kind of get ourselves up to enough mana. All right, we'll see how our Oculus player is able to kind of set themselves up here. Another Fatal Push is nice. 2 unearths. But yeah, we're going to go for the frog here. Psychic Frog going to come down. And we'll be able to pass. Let's see, do we get any paths or bolts or reprieve? We got a bolt. We've got a reprieve. I guess it's the, let's try to bolt here. Bolt the frog. Nice signed copy. You also know I'm a fan of the signed cards. Push will be discarded, so it is going to be a 2/3 at the moment. What else are we going to discard here? The counter spell. Okay, we're not worried about it. We're going to end this game with this. Let's do a reprieve. We're going to bounce the bolt here, and this lets us draw a card. Get a land, which is nice. We needed that. Play a land, pass. All right, so 4 mana for Scapeshift doesn't do anything. You really need to be up to like that 7 mana count. Throw the frog across the field, then that means the Boreal Grazer will definitely do some chump block and prevent a draw effect there. But 3 mana open for a blue player is never where you want to be sitting. Lots of counter spells available here. Potential counter spells, I guess we should say. Nice. Surveil land going to come out. I think the biggest thing to note with the Scapeshift list is how many mountains you have access to, and count, like keeping track of those outside of the Arboreal Grazer lines. Or not Arboreal Grazer, the Dryad of the Elysium Grove lines. Surveil. Again, what was the question we have to say is, like, does this impact the board? Does this progress my game plan at all? And that land, yes, it's important to get up the higher land count, but it doesn't actually help us deal with this frog right now. Colonial Heart Expedition doesn't really help us either at the moment, but it does help us in the sense that when a land enters, we get to put a counter on it. And then how many do we need? 3 quest counters. So whenever 3 lands enter, you get to sack it and go get 2 more lands. All right, we're going to be fetching. Yeah, there's the Surveil land. I like the Colonial Heart Expedition. That's an old school Scapeshift card. I'm sure many players are not used to seeing it. So it is one that works great with the fetch lands, where you're able to just kind of build up and then immediately pop it and like basically get these crazy ramps to set yourself up here for, Oculus is going to the graveyard. Whenever your opponent is doing that, like off of a Surveil, you know that there's an Unearth in their hand. All right, life total checks, 14 to 16. There's the Unearth. All right, bring the beats. All right. Oculus triggers here. Untap, upkeep. Let's do that. All right, so we need a fetch land here. Oh, reprieve. Okay, that's not bad. That doesn't really help us. I mean, bolting you, I don't mind that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I guess it's like we need the reprieve. We needed the reprieve to draw us a card here. So we could spend our turn doing that. Bolt, reprieve, bolt. But, I mean, 3 cards, that's 5, 6, 11, 12, 13. That's Xaxes. So we can't bolt the face. We have to bolt that 2/2 here. But I like that, like, we already showed the bolt earlier. Like, do the bolt, do the reprieve, and hope for the best, I guess. I don't know. That's also, like, too risky with all of this, like, potential counter spells and stuff like that, I feel like. So doing it on our opponent's turn is a little bit safer because that prevents them from being able to force a negation in or anything. Send this team 4 cards in hand. So we have to 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. 12 total. So we'll go to 1 if he dumps his entire hand. Bolt that. Hope it's not something that they can flip. Okay, they can't. Go to damage unless you're discarding anything. Pitch 1 before damage. So 9 total. Whew. Dropping to 4. Alright, hopefully they try to play something so we can reprieve it. But they don't. That's tough. Alright, Surveil. None of these 2 matter. But putting the Clean to Dust in the graveyard so we can flash it or escape it or flash it back. You know, do all that stuff. Another Colonial Heart. Okay. So if we Scapeshift here, we trigger our Colonial Heart. So we essentially get 6 lands. But it's not enough, right? Because we don't have we don't currently have a high enough mountain count, right? Because Valakut specifically says when a mountain enters under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains. But it doesn't matter because we try to cast it, but Sink into Stupor is going to put a stop to it and say, just go back to your hand. Ugh, tough. Oof. So it's what's the win condition? What are you trying to do? Are you doing like just land stuff? What's going on here? It's like, oh, I'm doing Valakut. So not the specifically the Primeval Titan version, just so like we're going old school, just cast Scapeshift and win through Valakut. So even with those 6 lands, it's not, I guess you could have 4 of them, but like you don't have enough damage to kill your opponent there. So that is a little bit tough there. But yeah, we get to see, Thought Seizes. It says, oh, I guess these subtleties here don't actually work then, because I was thinking you were on prime time, so I could try to subtlety your prime time, but no, not going to be as useful and helpful there. But still, I think this was a good one to show off and let people see a little bit of that like learning curve when it comes to picking up a new deck there. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. Again, we will be showing off the Valakut deck again a little bit more in the future from other players that own the deck and not just players picking it up. But that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next game.